Yes, top of the moment to you anywhere where you watch us from. Today will be Saturday, not where we take and do. Pass to talk about health, and some minutes ago I've been talking to Dr. Batigo there around the corner to take us through the world of everything we get to do with wellness and well-being. So on top of that, together make we welcome the doctor himself. You're welcome, sir.
Chief.
Hi, doc.
Good morning, sir.
Ekushé.
I'm happy to be back today.
How the patient and everybody there?
Thank God.
You're welcome, sir.
Good morning, viewers at home and around the world. This morning, we'll be looking at a very familiar topic. Malaria and malaria vaccine development. Malaria and malaria vaccine development. In the last 3 weeks, the world welcomed a glaring news that has to do with the discovery, the emergence of a new malaria vaccine that was touted to be about 77% efficacious or effective, beating the WHO global target of getting a vaccine that will be at least up to 75% effective against malaria. And of course, this latest vaccine was an improvement from the previously known malaria vaccine, talking about the RTSS that was commenced. As a matter of fact, the previously known one was said to have about 55% efficacy. And of course, WHO actually initiated a pilot program in 3 countries in sub-Saharan Africa, or 3 countries in Africa: Ghana, Kenya, and Malawi. And this has been ongoing for the past 2 years. So far, about 1.7 million doses of malaria vaccines have been administered to children in these 3 countries. And 650,000 children were said to have benefited from this new malaria vaccine. And of course, it comes with 4 doses that must be given to a child before the age of 2 years. So it's not meant to be for adults. But the good news is that we recently welcomed a breaking news that in another 1 or 2 years, we may have a malaria vaccine that is over or that is about 77% efficacious. And that will be a major breakthrough. And of course, it will change the narratives when it comes to preventing malaria and the disease burden associated with it. I want to read out some key facts I have here from WHO. Malaria is a life-threatening disease caused by parasites that are transmitted to people through the bites of infected female Anopheles mosquitoes. It is preventable and curable. In 2019, there were an estimated 229 million cases of malaria worldwide. The estimated number of malaria deaths stood at about 409,000 in 2019. Children aged 5 years are the most vulnerable group affected by malaria. In 2019, they accounted for 67%, which translated to about 274,000 of all malaria deaths worldwide. WHO African sub-region carries a disproportionately high share of the global malaria burden. In 2019, the WHO African sub-region was home to 94% of malaria cases and deaths worldwide. Of course, we do know that 94% of the global burden of malaria has to do with us, Africans. And when you narrow this down, you discover that one of the Plasmodium parasites, specifically the Plasmodium falciparum, is said to be responsible for 99.7% of this disease burden. So it's the most dreaded of all others. Malaria is caused by a parasite, Plasmodium species. And of course, there are about 5 of them that affect humans. Plasmodium falciparum and Plasmodium vivax are said to be the most virulent of them all.
Well,
and in African sub-region.
Dr. Ba, sorry to cut you a bit.
Yes.
When you say Plasmodium, but our own be say, the only mosquito they cause malaria.
Sure.
Only mosquito.
Yes.
So this mosquito where they talk now, nobody na Anopheles abi that mosquito where they chop person nobody the one where they sleep.
No, there are actually different species of Anopheles mosquitoes. There's different species of Anopheles mosquitoes. The Anopheles mosquitoes are actually the female mosquitoes.
So there are even different species of that one.
There are even different species.
Not only
them.
one female mosquito.
No. And these, of course, are the ones that are responsible for the transmission of malaria from one individual to another. Of course, apart from people getting malaria through mosquito bites, there are other methods, but usually we concentrate more on the mosquito bites because that appears to be the predominant route through which one can pick malaria. Okay. Malaria can also be transmitted from a pregnant mother to an unborn child.
Baby way inside one.
Yes, so baby can be born with malaria gotten from the mother.
And another thing we are no clear, we be saying general is a general cliche mentality where some people I want make it help me demystify as a doctor. Many people they talk say I want make us what's the relationship between malaria and typhoid. Because some people go talk say once person get malaria like this, maybe if you no treat am quickly say I don't turn to typhoid. Say malaria typhoid. In fact, you go see some people instead of them to treat malaria, they go say make it treat typhoid. So once you treat typhoid, you don't cover. We are meant to believe that typhoid is the elder brother of malaria. How true? And I know say we don't see such thing where for hospital.
Thank you very much. You can say I was smiling all through when you were asking
the
doctor
treat me for typhoid.
Yes, and it's a narrative that we find all the time. You see patients walking into the doctor's office. Some will not even bother to tell you their symptoms. Madam, what's the problem with you? Malaria and typhoid.
Malaria
and typhoid. As if both of them must always come together. Okay, but I'm happy to say that we have treated malaria and of course typhoid at different times on this program. But this morning, I would like to make emphasis that these two disease conditions are not the same thing, but they are related in terms of the symptoms. Their causative agents are different. Malaria is caused by a parasite, Plasmodium species, specifically, while typhoid is caused by Salmonella species. Of course, you have Salmonella typhi and then paratyphi and all the rest of them, which of course is a form of bacterium, or bacteria if you like. Okay, so, but because of the similarities in the symptoms that these two disease conditions can present with, oftentimes people tend to interchangeably use them, make the diagnosis themselves, not by doctors. And oftentimes they go the extra mile of getting to a pharmacy or a chemist nearby to actually ask for drugs for malaria and typhoid. And of course, most of the time, the people will always dispense to them with or without prescription. And of course, it has brought about drug abuse. It has also brought about the development of resistance to some of the drugs that are being used in the treatment of these two disease conditions. And we'll still discuss many more of that. Now, but let's go back to the distribution. The malaria parasite, Plasmodium species, like I said at the beginning, the number of them, P. falciparum, which of course accounts for about 99.7% of estimated malaria cases in African sub-region. The same P. falciparum is also responsible for 50% of cases of malaria in WHO Southeast Asia, 71% cases in Eastern Mediterranean, and 65% in Western Pacific. I said at the beginning that P. falciparum and P. vivax are the ones that pose the biggest threat. On the other hand, P. vivax is the predominant parasite in the WHO region of the Americas, and of course, is responsible for 75% of cases of malaria in that sub-region. What are the symptoms of malaria? Apart from the P. falciparum that we talked about, P. vivax, of course, you have P. malariae, and of course, as well as P. ovale. The symptoms of malaria are what we all know in this environment, and oftentimes we have people coming down with them.
Everybody said you don't become doctor for that one.
It comes with fever, malaria, of course, unexplained weakness. The person feels unwell. It could come with vomiting. It could come with GIT symptoms, nausea, vomiting, and oftentimes abdominal cramps. Okay? It can affect the human organs, especially the lungs. Okay? And it can cause death. Not just the lungs. Okay. Sometimes some people may come down in severe cases. If untreated, one can come down with cerebral malaria, and when untreated, it can lead to death.
Cerebral malaria, which one?
Yes. Now, when people are diagnosed, people who have cerebral malaria, it can make them to become unconscious over time. Yes, just like typical of what you see in somebody that suffered a stroke. The person will remain unconscious until treatment is instituted, and that will take a while before the person comes around. So that can also happen. Okay? Now, still in terms of the symptoms, it can also cause a number of non-specific symptoms, upper respiratory tract infections, symptoms like cough in some cases. Okay? And true to type, these are almost about the same type of symptoms that you have with typhoid. Okay. But if I must go a little bit clinical, the fever patterns in malaria can actually differentiate that with that of typhoid. Okay, so in malaria, you have what doctors refer to as swinging pyrexia. The temperature comes up at a particular time in the day and then goes down. The person feels well, and then it climbs up again, just like.
Because I notice it true, say that time when person get malaria, where they treat malaria, you go be like say you don't well all of a sudden. Now you even tell doctor again. I'm okay. Yes. Once they discharge you like this, where you reach out.
Usually in the evening period, the fever begins to come back again. Why? So the fever pattern can actually give it out.
Just about this is the way you talk, very correct. Say malaria in no time. Because in the evening, true.
That is just the pattern of
person
the
symptom. Person go well for morning. Now you go tell doctor, make her they go out. So evening like this, you go just the thing go weak person again. So magoni no time.
So no, it's just the pattern of the fever pattern in malaria. In typhoid, you have the step ladder fever pattern. The fever keeps going on. Okay. The person may have fever day 1. The fever is not abating. Day 2, it keeps climbing up. Even when you initiate treatment, the fever still takes days to drop down in step ladder approach. Okay, so that's the fever pattern that may be seen in typhoid. But like I said at the beginning, that can be only for trained eyes.
This one where I want to ask students, see circular assumption, but I want to know if it has medical proof. When a person get malaria, person they always get bad dream. Is it medically a sign of because most times when some people get malaria, they will tell you they want lalakala. They will say, is it medically okay to say it's part of the symptoms of malaria? I've been
Very good question. I don't think I've come across any scientific proof that talked about dream as one of the symptoms of malaria. But of course, I've had it even from a number of patients of mine. Okay, so but that's not a proven scientific symptom of malaria. Who is at risk? Okay, now the vulnerable groups or populations that are at risk of having malaria, much more than any other person in the population, will include children. It's particularly people who are under five years of age, who are under 5 years of age, pregnant women as well. Okay, as well as non-immune individuals migrants that are coming from places where malaria does not exist.
Then, like the Western world.
Yes. Someone coming in, somebody who probably has lived all his life in the US, or a child of a Nigerian parent that probably was born in the US and hasn't visited here for the first time. Okay? Such a person can be said to be a non-immune migrant. If he gets into a malaria endemic region, such a person is at risk. And that is the reason why most of the time, before people come down to this region, they are placed on prophylactic treatment for malaria. Okay, preventive treatment ahead of time so that they won't come down and then pick up the disease. And suffice also to say that the disease will come, when such people pick the infection, they are likely to come down with the disease, much more than the people who have probably lived in this part of the world. Another reason why malaria is, where under 5s are a lot more prone to malaria is that over time, our body system gets recurrent exposure will confer some degree of immunity to our body system.
I understand
so
that.
over time, we can have asymptomatic malaria infection. Someone can have malaria and may not be presenting with any symptoms.
You know, go come down with it.
We won't come down with the disease. Let me say this, because oftentimes we tend to look down on malaria, particularly in Nigeria, in our environment, in African sub-region. A number of countries are known to be worse hit with malaria. When you talk about high burden countries, Nigeria is far among the tops. Okay? Nigeria has about 23 to 25%, or Nigeria is said to be home to 23 to 25% of all the malaria cases across the globe.
23
to 25%. That's the highest, according to WHO. Okay? That said, malaria is theorized to have killed half of the human population that has ever lived, estimated to have killed about 50 billion people. No other disease has that frightening statistics. Okay, so it's not something we should toy about. Sometime in 2002, it was estimated that malaria was killing in the neighborhood of 3,000 people in Africa in one day, in 24 hours. But a lot of significant advancements have been made over the years. Of course, there has been reduction in the number of fatalities that are caused by malaria.
That's
Deaths. Because of the interventions that have been put in place by WHO and partners, as well as some other government of the world, countries of the world. And that is why today the deaths have been reduced from what it used to be some decades ago. Since 2000, there has been significant improvement, okay, in both reduction of the number of dead and the affectation of malaria. But all of that have started stalling in the last couple of years because we appear to have taken off our legs from the pedal. We're no longer doing those things that we used to do to keep malaria out of our environment.
Okay, sir. Dr. Bad, let me quickly come in. Funny as it may sound, but I always ask, why? What do you do? What do they conquer? I don't want to use the word eradicate, but at least reduce to the barest minimum. And even if it's eradicate, because like you take talk for the beginning of this presentation, they know they get malaria there. What do they take conquer that thing? We say this part of the world, we are still facing that issue of malaria. Say get I mean not their weather safe. How?
You've answered the question, sir. Thank you very much. It's on that note, I also like you to open the phone line so that our viewers at home will be able to call in and ask their questions.
Okay. The phone lines are open. Please feel free, join us. But turn down the volume on your TV set so that we can enjoy ourselves together.
Thank you very much. Now, going back to the question Chief asked me, he also gave an answer. The reason why we have malaria in some parts of the world and we don't have in others, it has so much to do with our environment, okay? Some regions of the world, temperate regions, where you have very cold temperatures, the parasites cannot survive there. So it's in the tropics, okay? That is not to say, it can also be seasonal. In some Western countries, they had malaria in time past. But like you also pointed out in the course of the question, a number of countries have been able to eliminate malaria from their regions or from their environment. Eradication is also possible. Recently, Algeria was among one of the African countries that recently joined the League of Countries that have eliminated malaria. Wow. And of course, this was as a result of population-based interventions, vector control interventions, which include things like wide use of mosquito-treated nets, ITN. And of course, the use of indoor residual spraying, IRS, that can be used 1 or 2 times in a year, okay, to bring down the population of the parasites, of the mosquitoes, okay? You were asking me a while ago that the Anopheles mosquitoes that are responsible for malaria. As a matter of fact, there are about over 400 types of different species of Anopheles mosquitoes, but only around 30 of them are of clinical importance, okay? Because these are the ones that are implicated in the etiology of malaria.
Over 400.
Okay? Yes. Now, let's also look at how malaria is transmitted from one person to the other. It's simply through the bites of this group of mosquitoes that are regarded as vectors, female Anopheles mosquitoes. It's not all the mosquitoes that have the potential or the capacity to
be a carrier.
Yes, to carry these parasites, okay, that can be picked from one person and given to another. Okay, so it's the female Anopheles mosquitoes that have been implicated. But other than that, we have also seen in the video clip we watched a while ago that congenital malaria can also happen from mother to a newly delivered baby. Malaria too can be gotten through other avenues other than these two that we have mentioned. It can be gotten through organ transplant. Okay. It can be gotten through sharing of sharp objects that have that have to do with blood contamination. It can also be gotten through blood transfusion in some cases. Okay, so other than through mosquito bite, it can be gotten through other avenues. It's important to mention that, but most important one is avenue that we have mentioned, of course, through mosquito, and that is why the all eyes are on that route of transmission. Prevention. How can we prevent
mosquito? Malaria.
Malaria. Of course, when you want to prevent malaria, you have to tackle what brings about the malaria, and of course, that takes us to the mosquitoes that you mentioned. Vector control is the major way to prevent malaria transmission in any environment.
Vector control.
Yes, vector control. And it can come in a number of ways.
Vector control.
The vector control is the intervention that can be put in place to tackle the transmission of malaria. I mentioned one of them a while ago, population-based or population-wide use of insecticide-treated nets.
The way they are achieving it in Algeria now.
Yes. Now, we have
let's take a
Elabo from Oyo State.
Good morning, Elabo.
Morning, sir.
How are you doing?
Fine, sir.
Okay, Dr. Bat is here. Please go ahead with your question.
Yes, sir. My problem is I normally have this malaria. Morning, sir.
Good morning, my brother.
Fine, sir. Yes, my question is that most time I do have malaria. I'm not sleeping, having headache, body pains.
You normally have malaria?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Batsa.
Thank you very much. I'm happy your question came in at the time we were discussing about prevention. Okay, so prevention is always better than cure. Okay, so I will lay emphasis on prevention. That, I think, will be able to solve your problem. Okay, we have mentioned the route through which one can get malaria, and of course, top on the list is bites from mosquitoes, specifically the Anopheles mosquitoes, which are the female ones. So you need to prevent yourself from being bitten by mosquitoes. And there are a number of ways you can do that in the home front. You need to ensure that your doors and windows are screened. They have nets screened properly so that mosquitoes will not be able to come into your living environment. It is no longer news that we live in a malaria endemic region.
Ben,
okay?
We are responsible for 25%.
Yes, 23 to 25% of cases globally. Okay, so other things you need to do is to maintain good hygiene, sanitation in and around your living areas. Ensure that you do not have stagnant waters around your home.
Azan, good morning. Good morning, Azan. Azan from Niger, you did here? You have to please call us back.
Yes, we would like to have you back.
Dr. Bat, where elaborate the talk go, if I get it right, which I also want you to shed light size, there's this general belief, say maybe some particular genotype. Say once he be, in fact, my wife na doctor for us now. She say, hey, that's why he they get malaria. Say Korede na BB, that's why I know they get malaria. Some people believe, say, maybe malaria is associated to a particular gene, that's AABB.
Yes, so thank you very much. Yes, I will link them up. You're very correct, sir. Thank you for the question. Still on Elabor's question. Okay, I also want to mention the use of, you need to deploy the use of insecticide-treated nets in your home. The net can do two things for all of us. It could serve as a barrier, prevention barrier, that will prevent mosquitoes from getting close to you. That's number one. Number two is that it has some form of insecticides. That's why it's called insecticide. Yes. So that insecticide can actually kill the mosquitoes when they perch on it. So through that two ways, it can prevent you. Okay, but also, we do know that when you talk about malaria transmission or malaria infection, you want to look at it from a number of points. Number one is the host factor. When you talk about the host factor, that is where the person's age will come in. If the person is under 5, the person is more likely to have malaria. The reason is, within that first 5 years of age, the person may not have been exposed enough to have developed partial immunity that can be found in an adult, that can oftentimes, Mr. John from Plateau, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. John. Good morning, Mr. John.
Okay, so the person may have a partial immunity that are found in adults that oftentimes can make us not to come down with any symptoms, even when we are infected with malaria. So at that stage, we say our system is immune. We are immune people, okay? Because it prevents us, not all the time that we may come down with malaria, not that we don't get bitten. While I was preparing for the topic, what was flying out around me, they allow me to rest until I made sure I killed it. Well, that is the truth of the matter. That is what we have in our environment. So we just have to help ourselves, okay? Also, let me hit the nail on the head. People who have some particular blood groups, okay, are known to have stronger
resistance to malaria.
No, are known to be prone to having malaria than a lot of others, genotypes, okay? So sometimes you hear that people with genotype AA are more prone to coming down with malaria and all that. Okay, so I think that has been scientifically proven. So it will also come under the host factor. Again, we want to look at the virulency. Augustine from Niger State. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Augustine.
Good morning. How's everything?
How you doing?
Thank you. I wanted to find out the treated mosquito net you are talking about.
Yes, sir.
Don't you think it has effect on...
Go ahead.
The treated mosquito net, does it have effect on those who are asthmatic?
Yes.
Good question.
Yes. Thank you for that very wonderful question. We do know, and also we treated asthma
Okay.
About a fortnight ago here. Anything that can have strong fragrance can become a trigger, okay, for asthmatic attack for people who are asthmatic. Okay, that can happen. Okay, but that said, if it may not be so for everybody. What triggers asthma in one person may differ from what triggers asthma in another person. Okay, recently I had a scenario in my facility, an asthmatic patient who was on admission. The sanitation team came to tidy up the room, and of course they used a perfume with the water that they use in cleaning the room. And the next one, the person started having issues, and she had to call our attention to it. So we had to take her away from that environment until the fragrance eases off before she could come back. So that can happen with insecticide-treatedness. That's a very good question. Thank you for pointing out that. But that said, people who can tolerate that can actually make use of it, because prevention is better than cure. So I was talking about the species. Now, the type of malaria or the severity that could come will also depend on the type of, on the species of the parasite that is causing the malaria. Okay, so in this environment, we have 97.9% of P. falciparum. Mohammed from Niger State.
Good morning, Mohammed.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, doctor.
How are you doing?
Pleased to meet you.
Chief Olododo, good morning, sir.
Good morning. That's the third caller from Niger State, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. I want to relate this malaria issue with HIV.
Thank you, sir.
We discovered that the Plasmodium falciparum that is causing malaria, it is found in human blood. The HIV virus itself is also found in the human blood. So I wonder why, if someone is having malaria bitten by a mosquito, cannot transmit the same HIV in a patient that is infected to another person. That is my question, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Getting right. It's like, can mosquito be a means of transmission for HIV?
Yes. We would have been finished if that was possible.
God is a good God.
God is great. Now, yes, that question is not a new one. It's a question we have read and heard plenty of times, sir. Thank you very much for also calling our attention to it. Such claims that malaria could be transmitted, or HIV could be transmitted by mosquito bites, have been debunked over and over again. But the reasons why that may not be possible, I think the scientific community hasn't given a definite answer. So, but like he said, God is great. I want to think those are some of the things that we still don't have answers to. Okay, but that's a good one, because if that were to be possible, it would be a different ballgame. Okay, because when we talk about vulnerable group of people that can have severe disease if they have malaria, or that are much more predisposed to having malaria, other than under 5s and pregnant women, people with HIV also are in that vulnerable group category. Ditto from non-immune migrants that are traveling and coming into endemic region. Adeni from Abuja. Adebi.
How are you there, Adebi?
Good morning, sir.
Yes. Good morning, though.
Yeah.
So I want to elaborate on this malaria. At times, we that we are living in urban area and those who are living in the urban area, at times the water causes the malaria. And some people say the borehole is good to drink than this waterborne pipe. Because of this waterborne pipe, some leakages under the canal. So, and when they take water, that bad water will still flow into this borne pipe water. And those who drink that water, they can be affected by malaria. Hello?
Thank you. I'm with you, sir.
So it can be damaged. So, and that one can cause malaria also. So now I don't even really know. You see, the borehole is good to drink, or this borne pipe water, so that how person can treat it, so that it will not cause the malaria.
Thank you very much,
Doctor,
sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Before you answer in question, make I also join mouth for wetin he talk. You know, say I ask you for the beginning of the show, say some things e dey wey be say na we doctor, na we street doctor or house doctor, na we coin am. Look at the issue of water wey he talk now, and I ask you, say you sure say after mosquito nothing dey cause malaria? You say no, we believe on the street say if you drink dirty water na malaria or typhoid.
Reaching the zero malaria target. That was the theme of this year's World Malaria Day that took place on the 25th of April 2021. As a matter of fact, every 25th of April is World Malaria Day. It's actually a day dedicated for us to raise awareness on the dangers that malaria can pose to the human nature. We sensitize people.
Okay, we have Elabo again. Wow.
From Oyo State.
Lucky you, Elabo.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, sir.
Yes, my question is that I want to know the best drug that's good to use to treat malaria parasite, and the best drug that is good to treat typhoid.
That's a red. It's a red issue. But there's no problem.
Okay, no problem. No problem. We'll do justice to your question, but you may need to call me after the program so we can discuss more on this. Okay, but let me answer your question. Of course, that appears to be my next subtopic, anti-malaria drugs.
I was about asking for that.
Yes.
So, Elabo,
Okay.
that's the doctor's personal line. You can reach him after the show.
Yes, thank you very much. Now, over the years, we do know that a number of drugs that were previously, I'm talking about drugs that were effective in the 1950s and 1960s, the chloroquine and all other ones, they are no longer the first line of treatment for malaria as of today.
Sure.
So the first line of treatment for malaria is artemisinin combination drugs.
I hope that's not a brand.
No, that's not a brand.
Okay,
They are called ACT, artemisinin combination therapy. Artemisinin combination therapy. As a matter of fact, artemisinin was even a Chinese herb that was discovered some years ago. Okay, it came from a plant called Artemisia annua. Okay,
Artemisia
yes,
annua.
that is the mainstay of treatment of malaria these days. Okay, so chloroquine, because of challenges of resistance, is no longer used. They are no longer the first line. Ditto for a number of other drugs like amodiaquine and a number of them.
Oh, this
okay,
queen self.
yes. Quinine too is still very effective. I must also point out that. But we'll talk more on that when we get to treatment of malaria. Okay? Now, talking about anti-malaria drugs and as well as drug resistance. First of all, I want to look at insecticide resistance. What is the reason why the current gains that we have made since the year 2000 till now, we are beginning to lose ground? The gains are uneven. Okay, meaning that they are not all the same in a number of countries. What may be responsible for these new challenges that we are facing? One of them is insecticide resistance. Insecticide resistance. One of the chemical or compound that is used to treat insecticide nets is called pyrethroid.
Okay.
Okay. That is also a compound that is found in the spray. Vector control can be done in a number of ways. One is indoor residual spray.
Okay.
That makes use of pyrethroids, as well as the use of insecticide-treated nets, ITN. These are some of measures of vector control that can prevent mosquitoes from getting close to humans. Now, this pyrethroid has been found to some mosquitoes have developed resistance to these pyrethroids. Okay, so they are no longer killed by this, and that is currently happening in a number of countries. According to the latest World Malaria Report, 73 countries reported mosquito resistance to at least one of the 4 commonly used insecticide classes in the period of 2010 to 2019. Mosquito resistance was reported to all the main insecticide classes. Okay, so unfortunately, this is the much our time can take today. Yes. So I'll promise you that we're going to continue from where we stopped come next week. So
Okay.
join us.
Yes, on top of that, I want to say a very big thank you to everybody who they watch. Thank you very much, Dr. Bat, for your time.
you, sir.
And we believe we've learned one or two things. So same time next week, we'll be here again. Bye.
Bye-bye.